All right, well, welcome everyone to DES 104. Excuse me, beginning image editing. We are in our third week, our third session, and today is Wednesday, August 23rd. Kind of fitting with our whole band of threes. So let me turn on my video camera. Hey y'all, good to see you. As usual, like I said, welcome. Let's see if we can move this so I don't just stare it into the corner. So I actually stare where my webcam is. So I look slightly more normal. But yeah, so hopefully everybody is doing good on this whole third week of the mod. I think for me, what I see as an instructor, and then also I'm actually also a student myself. I'm working on my doctorate. So this is kind of what I experience as well as I'm doing that, is that when you start a class, you're kind of like, yay, this is kind of your attitude. Pretend I'm drawing on like a line chart or something. You're like, yay, this is so exciting, new stuff, great, good things are happening, this is so cool. And then you hit kind of week 2 and you're like, okay, this is kind of, we're moving along, still learning, things are still cool, but starting to be routine. Then we get into week 3 and it's like, this is going nowhere. This is taking forever. Learning is really hard. Tool sets, skills are really difficult. It's hard to make time for school. Watching sports is way easier. That's what I think. Eating is always better than doing schoolwork. So, all these stupid, well, not stupid things we need, but, just other things you're like, this is really hard to integrate. And then the end kind of comes and you're like, hey, there's the end. The end is in sight. And suddenly, you kind of trend back upward and you hopefully, finish somewhere up here. So journey of, oh, welcome, Nancy. We're actually just doing a little journey of the student and kind of how things are going, how things are kind of shaping up together. But yeah, so anyway, so I'm saying, you start out and kind of down here and then you're like, yay, this is really exciting, kind of level off on week 2. Week 3, everybody seems to kind of dip with like motivation and life that gets in the way. And then usually week 4, you kind of go back up and kind of go through there. So kind of encouragement, if you feel like you are kind of in the week 3, dare I say nosedive? No, we won't use that negative terminology. But if you're in the week 3 where things are not as exciting, where things are kind of starting to feel a little like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is overwhelming. And I have a whole life that I've been ignoring because I'm trying to get something done. I get you completely. I understand the feeling. And I'm sure that everybody in the class is kind of in some way or shape kind of in that space as well. But so the good news is we're all in it together, but I guess that doesn't really help us get stuff done because even though we're all in it together, it's not like we're all going to do the work together. We all have to do our own projects. But as some kind of encouragement, know that I am okay with any late work. So I know that many of you had issues last week with just time, with kids going back to school, with work, with all sorts of things, and you weren't able to do the retouching assignment for the kids and their pets, or the cat, or the girl. So if you still want to do that, I would still be more than willing to accept those. And I think it would just be a good exercise for you to just kind of figure these things out. And it is, the first time you do photo editing, kind of retouching, it's not a Zen experience because you're trying to kind of figure out the tools. But guarantee if you do one, the second one that you do will be slightly easier, and it is kind of a fun, like it gets oddly relaxing, I find, and other designers have told me this too. So at some point it should be it should be more fun. So definitely give it a shot and kind of see what you can come up with. And same thing too for the assessment from last week, which was the type and a path with an image. We're actually going to look through several of those that were turned in this week, or last week, I guess. But yeah, again, it's just a really fun thing to do. And so, make time for it, because this is the cool stuff. Like, you guys all, came into school 4 months ago and were like, let's do design, like let's get at it. Then you had, like I said, like about 4 months of general education classes. You have finally arrived. So this is where it starts to count. So really, you know, make time for this to really count. You cannot find time, guarantee. We have no time. If we try to find it, it never happens. But we must make it. And if we make it, and if we make just small increments of it every day, you will see growth, and you will see kind of your skill set build. And even more, it'll just be good for your soul as a, you know, as a human, as a designer. So definitely do that. All right, so I'm going to turn off my camera, and I am going to jump back into the slides, and we will go from there. All right, sorry, I'm just looking at my dashboard trying to figure out where my chat box is. There it is. So let's move it around this way. And one more thing I just have to quickly do. Okay. All right, so where are we headed in this session? We're actually headed to 2 places, which don't look very exciting on an agenda, but will take a lot. We'll take our whole session, and they're very good things. And I think this is perhaps the most exciting week of this class. At least it's my favorite, so I'm a little bit biased in that way. Excuse me. So we're going to begin with just a discussion of the assessment. So I'm going to once again give you some tips, tricks, helpful bits of information that may help you succeed, hint, hint, as you take the assessment this week. And then we'll also see how those are very helpful for our overall kind of Photoshop workflow process. Next thing we're going to do is move into the assignment for this week. So if you have checked out the assignments, and if you have felt slightly like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing? We're going to demystify that quite a bit. It is a little bit of an oddly laid out assignment, but it's a really fun one, and it's really cool. And bonus, it will teach you some really good skills as well. So we're going to kind of go through that step by step. One thing I don't have on here is that we are also going to just take a look at some projects that came in last week, as I referenced. So last week we had the assessment, which was take an image, take some type, combine them together in some interesting manner, ideally using some sort of path-centric tool. You guys were amazing. Like there were so many cool things that came in. And so we're just going to do like a little kind of blitz, like, hey, look at this stuff that you made, and isn't this cool? And, you know, way to go you on it. I thought we could look through the assignments from last week as well, but as it was retouching, you know, everybody's after looked fairly similar, which was as it should be. So we didn't need to, you know, cycle through endless amounts of those. But yes, we will be doing that as well. And actually, let's do that right now. I was going to jump into the classroom, but we can jump into the other PDF as well. And let me share my screen again. So how are you doing today, Nancy? Are you having a good day? Good Wednesday? Let's just move this to read mode so we can see. All right. So here is, like I said, we're just going to kind of blitz through these. Let's see, it's your day off from work. Sweet. Very cool. So we have 17, so we're just going to kind of jump on through them. But yeah, so here's the first one. Fun in the sun. Don't forget the sunscreen. Family beach day with family. Love it. This is a very interesting look at how lots of different shapes were used, and then using the Type on a Path tool in Photoshop, you were able to, or this student was able to kind of outline and put different things in here. So pretty cool. I was kind of, the only thing I wish is that there'd be like a star over the starfish, and that too would be saying something like, come swim with me in the ocean, but don't step on me, or something like that. All right, so next one. They are our motivation. "Aw, how cute." Like, how could you not just, yeah, have a collective awe at this? This kind of reminds me of, it's back to school time in my area. And so this morning as I was out running, lots of kids were taking pictures on their front porches. And I was like, back to school, such nostalgia. But yeah, again, super simple kind of overall composition, and just, the pictures kind of speaking and then the words are kind of echoing. One thing to just kind of be aware of is when you are using a kind of brush stroke, kind of decorative, fancy type font, it's generally better not to do it in all caps, mostly because it's a little bit difficult to read. So I think if our motivation would have been in lowercase, it would have just been a little bit easier with the flow and that sort of thing. Or if even it would have been like a heart around their faces, so you can really think about how, once you're familiar with the tools, how you can kind of push and pull and keep on just adding those levels of communication to the image overall. Here's another one. So you can see a name placed into curves. Pretty cool, kind of how it echoes. This feels like it's kind of a moment in time in this shape that's going to morph into something else. So it has a very cool kind of animation-y feel to it. Here's another one. Again, a super cute kind of picture and type and all of those sorts of things. There is an interesting little warp going on at the top. Again, kind of cool. This one I love. I love all the little different pieces of kind of how it's been composed. Again, I feel like if there's like a heart with some words in it, I would love it even more. But again, this is a good start. And then, like I said in the other image, once you kind of have your feet under you, then you can say, okay, I can, make text with this. How can I, make text in something different? And, how can these tools work together? Here's another one. Again, kind of an interesting placement of type and a both totally creepy and kind of cool painting-like image. Again, I think it's working, but again, kind of cool to think about how can you maybe get the type to just sculpt a little bit more, so it's really getting close to the image, kind of curving, kind of arcing through. And again, this is like this project 2.0. This was just about you guys getting comfortable putting type into an image. But, just something to think about, because like I said, once you kind of get the basics down, then you can really start going in your mind and thinking, okay, now what else could I do? Like, how could I adjust this? How could I kind of amp this up? And what could happen? So here's another one. Good things happen to those who wait. Which you may not notice is that there is a tiny mermaid right here. Kind of cool. And this is a great example of kind of taking the type to the next level. So this could have been, just a straight block, maybe like under here or something like that. But because the student chose to really angle it, it's starting to look like it's quite a bit more integrated into the composition. So it feels connected to the tree. The two pieces really feel like they are, kind of both saying the same message. One other thing too that this is a good example of is I think that same font that we saw in the one with the two girls and They Are Our Motivations piece. Same font, only in uppers and lowers. And so you can see that it just is a little bit easier to read, a little bit easier to engage with, because it's that lowercase as well. All right, follow the path toward happiness. Oh. So cool. The letters actually have perspective on them in a 3D manner and looks like you could almost follow them. So yeah, very cool kind of use of overlay, use of layering, definitely use of the 3D type. And it's always fun for me to see kind of where people are in their Photoshop usage. So this student, has, I would guess, has a little Photoshop-y. This is not their first Photoshop rodeo, so to speak. A little bit of more knowledge under their belts, and that's cool. It's great to see, have the freedom to kind of show that. And then if you're not quite in this place and you're seeing this, like, hey, this is something you could aspire to, like not, not too far along. You could be making cool stuff like this with kind of 3D effects and kind of the gradient idea and that sort of thing. So pretty cool. And I love these layered, colorful squares. Like I'm a huge fan. You give me a neon and it's like, yes, we're good. All right, here's one. Let me zoom out. If you stay focused on what's ahead of you, you will never have to look behind. When you only see the world through one eye, you understand everything around you, I think. So yes, this is an interesting kind of play on pictures and shaping and things like that. Kind of the eye dish metaphor, looking interesting. I will say one thing, it's just a little difficult to read this. This text is just feeling a little kind of light. So, maybe if it was a little bit bigger up here, maybe if it was maybe in this corner. So just kind of think placement wise, kind of where things might have just a little bit more kind of standout power. Here's another one. Find your path to success. Oh, don't we all just want to walk down that dock and sit there for a while? I know I certainly do. But yeah, so again, an interesting placement, message, font. It's coming together in a good way. It's a very fancy font for a picture that also feels pretty equally fancy. It might be kind of cool, like we saw with the other one, if the type had been kind of angled on the boardwalk. But flat is always right as well. Here's another one, a beautiful flower design, or is it instead a deep underwater chasm? I love this. This is like, is it the arachnid or is it the tropical fruits, like 2.0? Kind of a mind warping thing to consider. But again, this is working really well. I like that it's kind of very ambiguous, so you don't really know what's going on, and that the image just further reinforces that. So it's not, it's not quite so obvious. It kind of makes you want to look, makes you want to guess, and that sort of thing. And everything from the, the layering of opacity of the shapes, so it's light to dark, and then even the placement of the type as well kind of gives it that like eerie feel. And it's interesting because I'm a little at the beginning, I was a little bit on the fence with the color choice for each of the phrases being a different color, because in some ways it feels a little like there's kind of too much going on. But on the other hand, I don't really know what else I would do with the type. Like I like the color, and I like that just, adds like another layer of fantasy to it. So I'm cool with the changes. I kind of want to see this animated, so it kind of goes like in and out. But I guess that will be the next Photoshop class. Or using Photoshop in video, which is a thing, and is something that is being hotly debated over in the discussion channel. So all right, so next one, in the view. Again, very interesting how like one thing is in focus, everything else isn't, and then the text is kind of arced around the important parts. Again, kind of drawing your eye back in. So super simple, but quite effective as well in kind of directing your eye to the appropriate spot. All right, here's another one. We'll zoom out just a little. The tracks will take you where it goes. The train will take you home. Ooh, that sounds very deep. Again, looks good. This is another one where I'm like, oh, if it could be here, like how cool would that be? But again, perspective-wise, it would get a little tricky and be a little bit harder to read or lay out. It would have kind of a Star Wars-y effect, though, perhaps. But yeah, overall, nice placement, nice kind of play with all that's going on, and kind of understated elegance to what's happening. Storms don't last forever. Woo! Again, I don't even know what it is that we're looking at, but it's great. Certainly kind of drawing you in an interesting kind of psychedelic manner, which is kind of cool. And also, you know, a little bit crazy at the same time, but crazy in a good way. And this one really is working nicely with the way the perspective is going and how it's all kind of sucking into the center. So pretty cool. And also, I think this one has quite a few images that are layered on top of one another, which again, blending modes. Yeah, explore those if you haven't. Like, put shapes on top of an image. Do it with type. You know, it works for everything. You just put it on there, and then change the blending mode to something like opacity, to darken, to lighten, and just watch and be amazed what might happen. All right, here's another one. Release the music in your heart. Again, very cool how the perspective is kind of, I just tipped my head, but you guys didn't see that because I don't have my webcam on, but the perspective really does kind of draw you through the guitar kind of into the end of it, where it feels kind of cool and interesting there. The one thing that's a little strange here, and this is perfectly done for the picture, but I almost wish release was like a little bit angled, because these are kind of angling from like lower left to upper right. It almost seems like if we had like an upper left to lower right angle, that would be pretty cool, but it's not quite how the picture's working. And had that been there, I'd have been like, I don't know if the picture's that way. So anyway, just something to consider. Save the dates, June 21st, 2019. Woohoo! I have a feeling something could be happening then. Something save the date worthy. But yeah, again, super simple picture, super simple type treatment, but it just shows, you know, how effective it is to just, you know, use, kind of have command and then use these simple tools. So this is something that could say save the date in kind of a, you know, flat, boxy, just kind of linear way. But because it's kind of arced around the rows in two places, it really just gives it this kind of extra sense of connection, and kind of reinforces the composition in a really good way. So, again, what a beautiful scenery. Love fall. Me too. And I will say that, speaking of fall, I've seen a couple leaves that are starting to turn colors, and I'm like, yes, let's get this done. Let's be done with summer and hot weather and anything like that. Let's get to the cold, crisp, like put on a sweater and go outside and see things that are beautiful. So again, nice looking image overall, kind of treatment of the type. This one too might have been kind of fun to see it like angle through the type itself, but you know, it's a good start. And when you're working with images and adding type, and you're working with kind of changes in direction or alignments or spacing or whatever, it's always a little bit of like a gamble, because you want it to look cool, but you also kind of want it to be readable. So yeah, what it will do, and kind of how to find that balance, all part of being a designer. And you actually generally don't know. Well, yeah, no, I don't think you do. You generally don't know until you try. So you always, you know, it's always worth a try. And then you step back and you say, okay, is this working? Is this working as well as it could be? If it is, why? Why is it working? You know, what's the gem here? And then if it's not working, you know, you have to be brutally honest with yourself, and say, you know, kind of why isn't it working? And how can I shift? How can I transform? So that it turns into something that actually is, in fact, working. All right, last but certainly not least, a little yin-yang action happening here. The good and evil, the evil and good. Again, kind of echoing the shape of the wings, which is kind of cool. And it's got just such a nice kind of graphic boldness to it, which is pretty sweet. Let's see, you like this one? Yeah, for me too. Yeah, I like that it's so simple, and yet it's so kind of graphic in how it's been constructed, with like all the different parts and pieces. So, and the type 2, effortless, like you see exactly how it should fit and how it should go. And there's a little part of me that was like, wouldn't it be cool if it was, on the wings? But I actually don't think it would be. I think it would be, I think it would be distracting if it were on the wings. So I like the kind of lower placement because your eye really does, kind of funnel down, and you see these, kind of goes, and then you see this kind of stuff here. So pretty cool. All right. Well, that was assessment 2. So if your piece got shown, for sure give yourself a little pat on the back, because it's cool stuff, and it's cool to see how you guys are thinking about and interpreting these different parts of the class, where you get to kind of use your creativity as opposed to just replicate something that is a required piece. So if you still haven't done this assessment, hopefully this gave you kind of like the extra oomph you needed to jump in and kind of explore. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be quite simple. And I'm a huge believer in keeping it simple is keeping it beautiful. So just give it a try, see what happens. And it shouldn't take a really long time. It'll take however it needs to take. And it's, it might take a short time, but then you get so into it that you want it to take a long time. So that too might be a good thing. But yeah, just try it and see what happens. I think with all Adobe products, and especially with Photoshop, you can come to a class like this. You can watch lynda.com tutorials, you can watch tutorials on the internet, but really the way that you learn is you just do it. So you just get into the program and you make stuff, and it could be terrible, messy, ugly stuff, and it doesn't matter. It's just the idea that you are in there and you are getting comfortable, because you have to kind of be able to have kind of like a dialogue with the software. And so the only way that really happens is if you get to know the software, and the software kind of gets to know you and your working process. So you just have to spend time with it, and then it comes. All right, so we are going to transition into, oops, I guess I don't have it pulled up, transition into our class, which is here. Let me log in. And doing its thing. And keeping on doing its thing. That's not how we wanted to see it, but that's okay. All right, we might stop sharing for just 1 second, so I can pull up the class in a way that makes sense. Okay, yay. I don't know why it is, but it seems like with Safari, it's a little bit of like anyone's guess how the how the class will pull up. One thing I did want to say, I was spending some time with a student last week, and I noticed that their dashboard looked like this. So it was just showing recent activities and like, announcements, discussions, all that sort of thing. So if your dashboard looks like this, bravo to you for being able to find the class, because I had no idea how to navigate through this. So if you are feeling like it's a little strange to get into class and you're kind of you're like going off this to-do list and things, I find it's much easier if you have your view be a card view. So you just come up to this little gear and click on card view, and then you can see all of the different courses that you're enrolled in. And I feel like it makes my life easier just because I process more visually. So if you wanted to give it a try, I think it's a little bit better. And the other thing too that I think I like better is that it shows you which courses have recent announcements or things. So you see this is our course. I've read all the announcements I posted. Whereas in the GA community, there's some stuff that hasn't been done. You know, this is faculty stuff I haven't taken note of yet. But yeah, just to, you know, explore your Canvas dashboard. Like this is like the equivalent of your locker, so to speak. You know, you can customize, you can get this looking however you want to. You know, these little things, as I say, they can move around. I guess they can't, but you know, just kind of play with things and see what's what and see what you prefer. Because if you can kind of get around this, then it'll just be so much easier for you to kind of get in and out of class and get things done. And you won't have to, you know, kind of worry so much about what goes where and all that kind of thing. All right, so let's get into our class and take a quick look at learning objectives for the week. Demonstrate various image manipulation techniques, demonstrate non-destructive editing principles, and create and manipulate text with the typographic tools, which actually might be last week's, but it's okay. So image manipulation techniques, non-destructive editing principles, kind of the two that we are going to, really kind of zoom into this week. All right, so let's jump out of here and back into our slides, so we can kind of go through a couple things. So first off, I know we talked about this just slightly in our kind of opening session, but how are you feeling? You know, what's your what's your level of Photoshop love and or like at the moment? It's always good to kind of just check in with yourself and just kind of see, like, do you really feel like you're getting what's going on? Do you feel like you're kind of not getting it, but you're kind of learning slowly? Do you feel like you're completely overwhelmed? Do you feel like you don't have Photoshop yet because you're still confused about installing it? You know, what are you feeling at the moment? And also, is it, what are you feeling and what do you want to be feeling? It's good to just, you know, kind of have a moment, a couple minutes, and just kind of, you know, go from there. So yeah, I'm curious, Nancy, I guess you don't have to answer since you're the only student, but if you want to, feeling pretty good so far about Photoshop? You feel like you're kind of getting it, it's kind of making sense, or do you feel like it's still kind of a foreign element and still kind of getting it done? Okay. Well, and if you're watching via video, you know, think about it too. Like, how are you feeling? What's your level? All right, so we are going to talk about editing, talk about masking, talk about non-destructive image editing. But before we do that, okay, oh good, you're kind of winging it by just messing around with it. We have another student who's appeared. Sweet. Yeah, and I think that's kind of it's kind of good. I mean, you just have to try and see and see what works and see what doesn't, especially in these intro classes. And that's kind of, everything is designed to give you a little insight into some stuff, but not so much that you feel like you actually get it, but just kind of you get your feet wet type thing. Okay, so we're going to talk about just a couple things to things to kind of keep in mind. These are kind of general high-level bits of information. These will make sense when we go into our demo of the assignment, but they might really, really, really make sense if you were to, say, try to do the assessment, which is a graded quiz. So just kind of putting that out there for what it's worth. Hint, hint. Okay, so first thing, if you want to retain the height to width proportions when resizing an object, what should you do? So there's something that you should always do if you have something that's too big and you want to shrink it down to fit. or too small and you want to kind of make it a little bit bigger in size, something you should always do, and it's, you know, clicking and dragging and stretching it. But there's something special that you want to do just to make sure that when you resize it, it kind of stays proportionate. And so basically what that thing is you want to hold down the shift key. So this, again, like I said, is going to become, it's going to make a lot more sense because we're going to see what happens when you try resizing something in Photoshop and you don't hold down shift. Basically it stretches, it distorts, it looks terrible. But we're actually going to see that when we jump into the software. But for right now, just kind of put it into your short-term memory. When you resize stuff, always hold down shift, and that will help you tremendously. So when you're resizing, you want to retain the height to width proportions, always hold down shift. All right, so next thing, want to create a selection that snaps to the edge of an object. So this is all related to masking. And again, we're gonna go over this when we go over the demo, but just kind of putting it out here now. So there's lots of different ways to select objects in Photoshop. The one that works by snapping to the edge of an object is actually called the magnetic lasso. So it's a bit like the cowboy version of going into Photoshop. But so if you want to create a selection that snaps to the edge of an object, make sure that you are using the magnetic lasso. Okay, so we have hold down shift, we have magnetic lasso. So kind of keep that in your head. Which tool lets you paint to select using a resizable brush? And this you probably hear and you're like, what? What does this mean? Is this like some sort of weird code? Again, we will go over this when we talk about the assignment and when we do the demo. But for now, when you want to paint to select using a resizable brush, you're actually using the quick selection tool. So quick selection tool allows you to quickly select pixels, and it works basically like a brush. So you brush over something, it selects the pixels, hence the quick selection tool. So quick selection, magnetic lasso, hold down shift. Kind of keep those ideas in your head. Okay, how can you increase or decrease your brush just by using your keyboard? So hello magnetic, or I was about to say hello magnetic lasso, wrong thing. Hello keyboard shortcuts. So we talked about keyboard shortcuts in our first week. I know that there are a couple of you that are practicing your keyboard shortcuts, which I think is fabulous. So because stuff like the quick selection tool relies on a brush, chances are you are going to be changing your brush size quite a bit, depending on what you're trying to select. So the way that you increase or decrease, aka change your brush, is brackets. So left or right. And yes, yes, you got it. Very cool. So left bracket decreases, right bracket increases, and it's all the width of your brush. That's what we're increasing or decreasing. So the width of the brushy part. I was suddenly picturing that like it gets longer or shorter, but no, we don't have that in Photoshop. We just have diameter. Okay, so brackets, quick selection, magnetic lasso, and hold down shift. So kind of, this is like repeating it in our heads. All right, so we'll see if I can actually repeat them all. I think I might be able to, but we'll see. What tool will set the foreground color to any color in the document just by clicking? So there is a very good tool that's often used in photo editing, especially if you're color correcting an image or if you want to paint something to match something else in the image. Just all those kind of good little pieces to be aware of. So if you want to select a color, there's one tool that's going to do this, and that tool is the eyedropper. So the eyedropper literally like sucks up a little sample of a pixel color, and then it allows you to paint that color in somewhere else. It allows you to make a shape be that color. It allows you to make some text that color. So it takes the sample of the color and then kind of puts it wherever you would like it to be. So we have eyedropper, brackets, quick selection tool, magnetic lasso, and hold down shift. So these might make a difference to you in the near future. Okay, so next thing, and I think this is the last one, the quick mask. So when you use the quick mask tool, which we are going to do now very soon, you're going to make a selection with the brush tool, and then you're going to use Shift Command I to actually inverse your selection. And it's, again, if this makes zero sense to you, it's okay. Just kind of hold this in your head for a little bit. Know that you will actually see it, so it will make sense in the very near future. But yeah, so quick mask. So you select something using the brush, and then you actually inverse what you've selected so that you can get, the piece that you want to. So everybody good here? So quick mask. So you make a selection using the brush tool, and then you inverse it. Then we have, I forgot the one that was right before this one. I'm already onto magnetic lasso. Eyedropper, that was it. So eyedropper tool is the tool that will set the foreground color to any document. Brackets, change your brush size. Quick selection tool lets you paint to select using a resizable brush. And then magnetic lasso allows you to create a selection that snaps to the edge of an object. And then always hold down Shift when you are resizing. So lots of good stuff here. And like I said, these are all kind of little things that at the moment may or may not make a lot of sense. But as soon as we jump into actually working in Photoshop, they will fully make sense. Okay, so speaking of Photoshop, let's jump into the assignment for this week in the classroom before we jump into Photoshop. Okay, so basically what you are doing for this assignment is that you are going to practice your photo compositing skills. So basically this, when you come to this assignment, you see that there are videos, and then there's kind of this little outline of what you're supposed to be doing, some links and things, another video. So it's a little chaotic, and I apologize for that. It's a little difficult to navigate, but basically what you're doing, so these are good things to watch, but come down here first. So basically what you're going to be doing is taking 4 things. So a photo of an animal, a photo of a hat, crown, or headpiece, a photo of a prop, so a briefcase, drinking glass, pencil, something the animal can interact with, and a background. And what you're going to be doing is compositing those 4 images together in a clever way using the selection and masking techniques demonstrated in the 2 videos above. So be sure to use adjustment layers and clipping masks to make the lighting and color consistent, so we'll talk about that as well. So for example, you could have a camel wearing a hat carrying a briefcase, or a puppy wearing a tiara holding a magic wand. Be clever and fun. So yeah, so you guys are gonna make crazy, cute, and amazing photoshopped images just by combining a couple of random things. So with this assignment, the crazier the better. Like seriously, have some fun with this because it's a super fun assignment. Like this is for real one of my favorites, if not my favorite for this course. So I know you guys will love it too, hopefully. Okay, so before we actually get into how to do all of this in Photoshop, let's talk about where you're going to get the images from. So here it recommends using the free stock imagery at sxc.hu, which I believe has since redirected to freeimages.com. So yeah, so here it is, freeimages.com. This is an amazing, apparently I'm connected to Xfinity. Great. So this is an amazing site of literally free images, which is quite nice. You can usually download high resolution versions of it, but the one thing that you will have to do if you want high resolution versions is you will have to sign in. So you can see here it says my account. So basically I created an account with free images. It is a free account with free images. Sorry, that was terrible. But yeah, so you create a free account, and then it gives you access to downloading images that are not watermarked. And this is going to be important because you don't want, a watermark across the center of your image. And if you're wondering, a watermark is something in a very light color that says like freeimages.com or says adobe.com. It's basically whoever created the image puts their little stamp on it so that nobody is using it who doesn't have access to it. So it's kind of a copyright thing. Okay, so freeimages.com. So this is one great site. If you don't want to use this site, if you have your own stuff, that's fine. You can go for it. It really doesn't matter quite where you get your images for this, because you're going to be manipulating them quite a bit anyway. So kind of keep that in mind. But this is a great site. I'm a fan. Okay, so we're going to type in. So what we need is an animal, something for their head, a prop, and a background. So I'm going to type in turtle, since I'm having kind of a turtle moment. And basically what you're going to look for are, don't look here where it says related from iStock. We want to go to free. So we could click on this little tab that says free, or just scroll down slightly. Oh, look at how cute the little turtle is. Ooh, that one doesn't look very good, so we won't look at that. Oh, it's so cute. Okay, so you're going to choose an animal, whatever animal you want to. Like I said, I'm doing a turtle, but you could do whatever you want. And here's where it gets fun, because if you're anything like me, you look at images and like an hour passes and you don't even realize it. But I'm gonna try not to do that. So this guy's kind of cute. So basically with these images, what you're going to be doing is cutting the animal out from its background. So really kind of think of what might be what might be fairly easy to cut out, and what would be a little bit more difficult. So for example, this one might be a little bit difficult because there's so much grass and things on it, whereas like anything with a white background is pretty easy. This one's fairly easy because it doesn't have a very busy background. So if the turtle is standing out quite a bit from the background, then generally, like this is pretty easy, then generally it's pretty easy to clip out. So these would all be quite easy because they're just white backgrounds. So as you're looking through, kind of figure that out, choose accordingly. Okay, so we're gonna take this little tiny guy. Wow, so small. And then what we're gonna do is just click download. And so because I'm logged in, I can do the full size. So you want to do the biggest one possible. So it's going to do its thing. And however you happen to have your download set up, it may or may not open in preview. Mine always does, so I'm going to keep that. Okay, so next thing we're going to look for is a hat. So we're going to do it could be a hat, a crown, a headpiece. Let's do a hat. Okay, once again, anything that doesn't have a background is going to be a bit easier, but it may or may not be as as exciting. And the other thing you want to kind of keep in mind is just think about, the angles. So what would kind of look like it was being worn by your animal, just as far as the angle that's going to go on it. I think I'm going to do the straw hat, kind of feeling that. Okay, so we're going to do download, full size. And I think we'll actually stop here and jump into Photoshop, and then we'll get the other pieces in a little bit. Okay, so let's see if we have a size requirement for this. Doesn't look like we do, so we can just make up what we want to. Okay. All right, so we are going to get into Photoshop, which I don't, oh yeah, I do have open. So here it is. So there isn't a size outlined for the assignment. So I would say you can kind of make up your own size that you would like. I'm going to work in 6-inch square because I think that'll be a nice idea for what I'm envisioning with my tiny tortoise in a cowboy hat. So I'm going to just come over here to New, and 6 is fine. I just have these both set to inches. So again, depending on what your image looks like will really kind of yeah, you can really kind of think about whatever size you need it to be is going to be fine. Okay, so once we open up a new document in Photoshop, what should always be our first thing that we do? You guys remember, it looks like we have a couple participants. What's the first thing? Yep, save it for sure. Okay, so we're going to do File, Save As, and just do last name, oops, underscore assignment 3. And this is actually a good thing. Should this be a JPEG that we're saving it as for our working file, or should we save it as something else? Kind of a quick lightning round pop quiz. What should we be saving it as? Not quite a JPEG. We should be saving it as a PSD. So we want to save it as a Photoshop file because if we save it as a Photoshop file, then we'll have all of our layers intact, and then we can always go back and kind of update things if we need to. So save as a JPEG at the very end. Always save at the beginning as a PSD. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is open up our file that we downloaded. And I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because I don't know the state of my downloads folder. Oh, it's fine. Okay. Oops. Okay, so here's my downloads folder. So I just have to find my turtle. There he is. And click open. And we are going to begin to take him from the background that he's on and put him into this background. And basically all we want is, well, all I want, all I want is Photoshop to stay up there. What is happening with this thing? Well, I guess I won't do it with annotation. So all I want is kind of this upper part of him. And I basically want to cut the other stuff out. So in theory, we could just take our eraser tool and we could just erase everything. We could take our crop tool and we could just cut everything out. So we could do a lot of things that might, in your mind, you might think that might be an easy thing, but they're actually not very good principles. What we're going to really do is something called mask him. So how Photoshop works, as we said in week 1, is that it works with pixels. So every image is made with millions, basically, of little squares kind of next to each other with different colors. So when you erase, when you crop, when you do anything like that directly to the pixels, what you do is you actually get rid of pixels, and that's not a very good practice as a designer. And the reason that that's not is because you might get rid of something that you might need later on. So designers are very like, they're kind of like pack rats in that you always want to make sure that you have everything possible because you never know if you might need it in the future. And so when you work in ways where you just kind of delete stuff or erase stuff or whatever, that's called destructive editing because you're actually destroying pixels. So what we're going to do is we're not going to cut away pixels. We're going to cover up pixels that we don't need. But like I said, we can always come back to them later if we need to. So what we're going to be doing is going to go back to that first learning objective for this week, and we are going to be doing non-destructive image editing. So we're not going to destroy pixels. We're just going to cover them up. And this is actually a very important thing to kind of be aware of because it sets people apart who don't really know what they're doing but just kind of know their way around Photoshop from people that are kind of legit designers, mostly because you really need to save pixels. You need to save the different parts and pieces of your image. And the only way you do that is if you cover them as opposed to kind of cut them out. So it's an important, kind of an important thing to keep in your head. Okay, so how do we do that? Very carefully. No. So we do that through the different ways of editing, or I'm sorry, different ways of masking within Photoshop. So masking is kind of something that everybody does. Everybody has like their flavor that they enjoy of the tool set to use, and so they kind of do it their own way. So I'm going to show you guys basically 3 different ways of doing it. And these are also profiled in the assignment videos, so you can kind of go back and watch them in more of a targeted version if you want to. But the important thing is like just try it and see which one kind of speaks to you best. Because there's not like this is the only way to mask. It's like the only way to the best way to mask is the way that you like and that works for you. And it doesn't, the other ways are fine as well. So kind of keep an open mind, but just, get in and see what you like, because they all kind of operate in basically the same kind of ways. All right, so first thing we are going to try is called making a mask with the quick selection tool. So the quick selection tool basically operates from the brush tool. So it looks like the brush tool. And I'm sorry if it sounded like I just paused because I just thought of one other thing I was going to show you and I didn't. So we'll get there in 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. And if you are watching via video, if you are here in person, I apologize because I haven't put these up yet. But I have a series of Word documents that are going to kind of outline what I'm doing. And I want to just show them on the screen for a second before we jump into things. But basically, you can find these as soon as the session's over. So if you're watching the video, you can do it. If you're not, if you're here in person, you can't do it quite yet. But basically, I have Word documents of creating a quick mask, then using the pen tool and what that looks like to create a mask, and then also using the magnetic lasso. So these are all really good resources, and if you're kind of like a person that likes to watch and then also kind of follow along in like a wordy way, then check out the announcements, because that's where these will be posted. So kind of keep that in mind as well. Okay, so back into Photoshop, where we're going to do this first one, which is the quick mask tool. Okay, so here's my little guy. Okay, so the quick mask tool basically works on the brush idea. So as we learned, if you want your brush tip to get bigger or smaller, you use brackets. Good stuff. So with the quick mask, you want to make sure your brush tool is selected at first. You want to make sure your opacity is set to 100. Your flow is also set to 100. And then you want to hit Q on your keyboard. And the size of your brush doesn't really matter. You're going to kind of brush over your, the thing you want to select. So, I wouldn't use a gigantic brush because I would lose my little guy. I also wouldn't use a tiny brush because it would take forever. So kind of a medium size, whatever that might be. And then you hit Q on your keyboard. So Q, and you're ready to go. So I'm going to hit Q again, and notice this little thing in my toolbar. So when you hit Q with your brush tool engaged, basically what it does is it tells Photoshop that, oh, this person would like to make a quick mask now, so I'm going to enter into that mode. So you can tell if you've entered into that mode or not with this little icon. So right now I'm not in quick mask mode. Hitting Q, now I am. So you see this little thing changes. And it's so subtle, and it's like you don't really see it, but if you know to look for it, you see it. And then also you can see up here it goes from RGB into quick mask. So kind of some good things to keep in mind. So brush, keep your opacity at 100, normal, hit Q, enter into your quick mask. So then basically what you're going to do is just paint over whatever you want to, essentially whatever you want to choose. And if you watch the video, you'll notice that Carly Heath, who's the instructor that actually made that video, paints over her, I think she has like a lemur, and it turns red. So in a previous version of Photoshop, when you would make a quick mask, it would turn your image red. You can still get it to do that, but you have to change your settings with this new version. So now it's kind of like you're painting over it with a whiteout. So ideally you want to just get the whole thing covered. So you can see this little flipper is a little smaller, so I'm going to hit my left bracket so that my brush gets a little bit smaller. And then paint it out. So do you guys remember who are here in person how you zoom into your photo, what tool you use? Get my chat box out so I can see. Because for this, sometimes it helps if you can kind of zoom in a little bit to get it close. Yeah, let's get back in here. So you just want to cover everything. So basically what you use is Command plus, you zoom in, and then Command minus, you zoom out. Okay, so we have them pretty well covered. Kind of doesn't look like anything, but that's exactly how it should be. So we have them pretty well covered, and then what we're going to do is we're going to hit Q again. So we're going to get out of quick mask mode, but we're going to see some kind of flashy, wavy lines that are going to show us what we've selected. So I'm going to hit Q on my keyboard again. Oops, with my page selected. And you'll see, there's kind of a bunch of kind of wiggly, dotted, moving lines that are outlining our tortoise as well as our background. So one thing you might remember from such things as about 20 minutes ago when we were buzzing through random information is that we did talk a bit about the idea of quick selection and inverse, kind of the inverse action. So basically what happens with the quick mask is that you paint over what you want to be selected, but then you have to invert so that you can actually select it. And it doesn't make any sense, and it's just kind of one of those things, just get it into your head. I mean, it kind of makes sense once you know how the tools work, but for right now, just know that you always have to do the inverse step, and it'll just be fine. It's kind of, just trust that, and it'll be okay. Okay, so we have our guy selected. You can see everything kind of moving around. And so basically what we're going to do is we could do these three keys all at once, which are Shift, Command, and I. and that's the keyboard shortcut for inverse. Or we could come up here and go to select and inverse, and same deal. So basically what we want is our little lines to only be around our little turtle guy, and have him be the selected thing. So once we see that, or whatever you happen to be masking, we're going to come to our layers panel and click on this little thing that looks remarkably like this thing over here. This is our mask layer, and the mask has been applied. So basically what's happened is that there's a mask, which is literally like a mask you would wear for Halloween or for New Year's or something, and it's been placed on top of our image, and we can only see kind of the cutout places of it, and the pixels are all still intact, whatever, underneath, but we just see kind of what we need to see. So when we get to this point, we can zoom in a little bit, and you'll notice that I didn't do a perfect job kind of refining my edges. It's actually okay because the mask is considered a live element, so you can constantly keep on changing it. You don't have to, just stick with it as is and be like, oh, well, whatever. No, you can go in, you can change it, you can fix it and refine it, which is what we're going to do next. So basically how that works, and this is kind of scary to look at up close. I'm now regretting my choice. I should have done like a puppy or something, but it's okay. Okay, so how you can kind of switch up a mask is, again, with your brush tool. And you'll notice that these little things say black and white. So if you put black as your foreground color and then paint with your brush, it will actually paint more mask onto your image, and then you can get a much tighter fit for what you're doing. So black in front lets you paint mask onto your image. If you accidentally do too much, you can just put white on the front and it removes the mask from the image. So black paints the mask on, white takes the mask off. And again, I wish I had like a catchy phrase to tell you for why this works. I got nothing, but it's just kind of one of those things that you learn with Photoshop, and it's, you do it enough times and then it kind of sticks as to what happens. And if you do something wrong, they're inverses, so you can always kind of fix it again. If you want to have a slightly less hard, kind of hard line, hard edge, you can come up here and change your brush to a softer brush. So these ones that kind of look like gradients tend to be softer. You can take the hardness, dial it down, and then paint. Oops. Command Z, always our friend. And it'll just give you a slightly softer line. It doesn't really, it's kind of whatever you're feeling is a good thing. And so I'm just using my brush tool, kind of painting along here, refining. And again, I'm just pushing my trackpad with my thumb, dragging my first finger, going through, and kind of just getting the line happening. It's not really rocket science, but gets the job done. Okay, so we're gonna get this guy here. Looks like I got a little finger there, so I don't want to do that. So it looks like we're erasing pixels, but actually they're just under the mask. So if I wanted to get them back, I would still be able to have them. So I'm going to zoom in even further, make my brush even smaller. So again, using the brackets, and then just going around and cleaning up this edge. So this is why it's nice that you choose something that really stands out from its background, because it's easy to clean up these different bits and pieces. Because if it's all the same color, it's a little difficult to see it. Okay, so we're gonna get our brush slightly bigger. Get this out here. Okay, all right, so when you have something that's fairly well masked, we're gonna move it into our final document, which is the one that we're gonna build as kind of a composite. So let's see how to do that. So basically the easiest way to do that is, I hope you guys can see now, I have 2 tabs open. So I have Turtle 3, and then I have Hammersheim Assignment 1. So I want these two documents to be kind of side by side, because I'm going to drag and drop, I'm going to drag and drop my turtle into my assignment layer. So how I can get them side by side is I'm just going to grab my tab that says turtle and drag it, and it will create a new window. So you want your two stuff to be your two things to be kind of side by side somewhat. Okay, next thing we're going to do, grab our rectangle marquee, which is this guy, draw a box around what we want for our piece. So you can see the little lines are moving again. Grab our layer, drag it into our PSD document, let go, and like magic, it appears. And this is super cool. I'm gonna do it one more time so we can see. Okay, so I have my image with my rectangle marquee. So I'm gonna grab the layer, so where it says layer 0, just grab it, drop it, and it's there. And you have the mask in place. You have the turtle in place, and life is life is feeling good. Okay, so I'm going to save it quickly so we don't lose it. Okay, all right. So next thing that we are going to do is I noticed that my turtle is a little bit small, so I want to make him a bit larger. So how to do that? I'm going to use my my move tool, which is this guy right here, and I'm going to click on show transform control, so this box, and then I'm going to click and drag to make him a bit larger. So let me zoom out so we can see this a little bit more. So as I'm making him larger, look what suddenly could happen. Is this a good thing if he looks like that? What do you guys think who are here in class? And if you're watching via video, you know, ask yourself the same question. Is this a good thing? Okay, looks like we have too wide. All right. Spoiler alert, this is not a good thing. So anytime you resize, let's Command Z to get out of there. Anytime you resize, you guys remember, what key do you have to hold down so that you resize proportionately? Again, we talked about this at the beginning of our session. And if you take things such as the assessment, this will come up again. What do you hold down? Always hold down Shift key. So if you hold down Shift, you resize proportionately. If you don't hold down Shift and you think you can do it, you can't. It's not possible to resize proportionately just by eyeballing it. You have to hold down Shift. So hold down your Shift key and you're good. And then just hit return or press this little check mark and you're good to go. Okay, so here's our turtle guy, raising his flipper and looking good. I'm just going to turn that off. Okay, so we're going to save that one more time. So File, Save, and move right along to our next. Move right along to our next element. So we did quick mask or quick selection mask, and that operates using the brush and then using this guy down here, which is the quick mask mode. So that was one option for masking. And again, we're doing non-destructive image editing, so we're not destroying any pixels. We are just covering up. So we are covering rather than cutting, kind of a good descriptor. Okay, so we're going to grab our hat next. So I'm going to go to File, Open, and find the straw hat. And what we're going to do with this guy is we're going to create a mask using the pen tool. So this is, it's our second option. Good thing to try. So the pen tool is this guy here. It looks like a little kind of a quill, like a nib type deal. So we're going to click on it. And basically the pen tool is great for when you have fairly simple shapes, because what you're going to do is just click around your shapes to establish a mask. So it's basically like you're outlining. If you like a lot of control and if you like to click and get stuff done, the pen tool option might be for you. So it's all, like we said, you know, these tools, like what's the best tool to use? The best tool to use is the tool that you understand and that you get. So I'm just clicking along this hat, and you can see that every time I click, a little box shows up, and basically what that box is just a little anchor point that's going to help me with help establish my mask. So we're just going to come over here. I'm losing those little tassels, but that's okay. And eventually you want to click on the first box that you made. So we're going to click that, and we're going to close up the path. So let me do that just one more time because I feel like I did that a little bit. Let's see. Get rid of it. Actually, let's just close it. One more time. Open recent straw hat. Okay, so got this here. Clicking on our pen tool. Make sure this says path. So there's a chance it could say shape, but we want to say path. Okay, so we're going to just click. And everywhere you click, it puts a little anchor point. And this is going to provide the boundaries for your mask. And you can see I'm getting to a point where I can't quite see it, so I'm just going to do a quick command minus, and then it'll zoom me out so I can get the rest of my hat in view. Okay, so lots of clicking, and still more, and then you start, click on right where you ended, and you're good. Okay, so once you have that, it's tempting to say mask or shape making at the top, but really what you want to do is just click on this thing that says selection. So make selection. So click it, and click OK, and does this not feel slightly deja vu? Like what we did with the tortoise. Same deal here. You know, you see these little like blinky lines selecting both the hat and the background. So if you said, perfect, let's go make our mask, look what's going to happen. Do you guys know what I need to do? Do you remember from before? From the turtle guy. What did I do previously, and what did we mention at the beginning of class? We always have to do this when we're working with selections, and it's kind of one of those like, just believe it for now because there's reasons behind it, but it's just annoying. But that's what I always think, or that's what I always thought as a student. And like now that I'm a designer, I'm like, nah, just don't question it. It's how life is. Okay, we have inverse, Shift Command I, exactly. We have to inverse. If we don't inverse, bad things happen. So you can come up here to select, inverse, or you could do Shift Command I on your keyboard, doesn't matter. And you only want one thing selected. If you have two things selected, that's your heads up that something's wrong. Okay, then we're going to do quick mask, or add a mask in our layers panel. And there's our hat. Okay, so same process, getting the mask, or getting the hat onto our turtle. We want to pull out our tabs so they're side by side. We want to grab our rectangle marquee, draw it around our shape, take our layer, drag, drop, and shazam, there it goes. Oh, this is going to be so cute. Okay, so we're going to zoom in a little bit. And I could have done some refining of my hat before I even brought it in here. There are a couple places I see I could get a little bit better of a trim on it, but we're not going to do that at the moment. But what we are going to do is just work with the fit a little bit. So again, let's try it small. So again, holding down Shift and zooming it out, see how I like it. We could rotate it just a little bit. maybe the other way. So hopefully you guys are seeing that this is, we can put it this way. This is really meant to be kind of just like a fun, crazy assignment. And you don't really have to be, you know, super, super formal. The sillier probably the better in a lot of ways. Okay, so one thing I did just do, which is good to talk about as well, is when you are moving an image around, you can't really see it with this hat, so let's see if we can see it with the turtle. There's how the document is set up is there's this little thing in the center of it that kind of places where the midpoint of the image is. Don't click on this, because if you click on this thinking that you're going to move the image, it doesn't work. So always click somewhere outside of that and you can move the image. If you click on this, you're just going to move the midpoint and it's not going to help you. So just kind of know that thing is there kind of lurking, and don't get too caught up in it. Okay, so I feel like as much as I love my hat, I feel like it's not fitting very well, but it's okay. Seeing as this is just a demo and I'm giving you guys access to your tools, I won't agonize too much. But I will say, if I were making this would be the point where I would say, yeah, that hat's totally not working. Let's go get another one. But I will resist that urge for the moment, and instead kind of keep on moving forward. Actually, we could probably do that, and I could just show you one more masking tool, since that's what I was going to do anyway. Okay, let's do that. My little designer heart would feel better about that. Okay, so we need a hat that's going to fit our guy. And just a reminder, our guy looks like this. So kind of more of like a full-on hat, whatever that might look like. I know that there's like that might be kind of cool, a party hat. Or this might be kind of cool, because then I could just mask him out. That might be kind of cool if he was a Brazilian soccer fan. So these are all choices, you guys get to make as your, if you want him to be a Santa, we could do this. We're actually gonna do this one though. Okay, and download, and we want to download full. And it's gonna do its thing. Okay, so for you guys who are here in person, oh, so cute. How are you feeling so far about this masking? And if you're watching the video, how are you feeling as well? What's the vibe? Do you feel like you kind of are starting to, you kind of get this whole masking business? Kind of intimidated by it? It's okay. Do you feel like you've definitely got it? What's the feeling? Okay. All right, so one thing I'm going to do with this image, just right off, and you guys can feel free to comment as I continue to chat away. But one thing I'm just going to do with this image right off the bat is it looks like it's a little bit too bright to me. So it feels a little bit overexposed. So just like with our images last week that we worked with, I'm going to just put an exposure, correct the exposure just a little bit through an adjustment layer. So it looks like it's overexposed. So I'm just going to take it down just a tiny bit, so we can just get it not quite so bright. Oops! Oh no! Where did he go? There he is. Another thing you might realize when you have a bunch of Photoshop windows open, it does get a little messy and confusing sometimes, but it's okay. Okay. All right, so we're going to go back to this and look at one more. Let's see. Should we look at one more with this, or should we not? Yeah, I guess we can. Okay, so we're going to look at one more way to basically mask, which we know now kind of means make a selection. And that's going to be using the magnetic lasso tool. So again, this is something that showed up in our kind of the first part of our session. So it's this guy right here. So it may look like this, a lasso on your on your computer or on your Photoshop, but you just have to, if it does, click and hold, and then choose magnetic as that lower one. So basically what the magnetic lasso tool does is it kind of puts those little anchor points, just like the pen tool does, but the lasso tool does it for you. So the lasso tool doesn't, well, it does it for you by looking at the contrast of the colors. So it kind of, let me just show you how it works, and it kind of will go from there. Okay, so basically with the lasso tool, you have a couple settings that it's good to pay attention to before you start using it. And the first one is contrast, and the second one is frequency. So frequency refers to how many of those little anchor points, which are the little squares that you saw with the pen tool, kind of appear in the image. And then contrast refers to kind of what colors it wants to lasso in. So how the lasso tool works is that you basically tell Photoshop kind of what colors you're looking for to kind of rope in and bring to the pasture. And then they find those colors as you're clicking and dragging and kind of gather them for you. So this is probably not an optimal picture to do the lasso tool with, because the couch is kind of very close to the color of the hat, but I think it might work. So we're gonna try it anyway. So basically contrast 50%. So so it's going to lasso things that are kind of 50% contrast with the edge that we're telling it to select. So let's just see how it's going to work. So you just click once, and then I'm not clicking, I'm just dragging, and the tool itself is putting all these little anchor points in, and how it's dropping them are all based on the colors and the pixels that it's seeing. So it's like using the pen tool, but it's a little bit kind of easier in that it does it for you. It's a little not as easy because you have slightly less control. So if you're kind of a control freak with your life, which I actually kind of am, the magnetic lasso is not as great for you. But if you're a person who just likes the computer to do it, and then you can kind of go in and refine it, the magnetic lasso is great. So I'm not clicking at all, and it just made a million, give or take, 900,000, a million of these little anchor points that are selecting this part of the image. So I'm just going to click again, and you'll see the selection has happened right here. So I'm going to do that one more time because it's kind of a cool, it's definitely a cool tool, but it's also one of those things that you really have to, you have to try it yourself, like all these, just so you know how it works. So I just clicked once. I don't need to click again until I get to the end of the lasso. So you can see how it's just putting all of them in, and it's doing this solely based on the color and kind of the contrast with the pixels. And you can see here it kind of is grabbing a little bit of couch because the couch looks a lot like the hat. It's kind of the same, relatively the same color. But over here it's better. Coming down. It knows not to grab the dog. Well, as it grabbed a bit of the dog. It knows not to grab the dog so much because it's going with the hat. Okay, and when you're done, you just click where you started, and then you'll see it it selected the mask. Okay, or I'm sorry, it selected the image. So speaking of selecting the image, the magnetic lasso tool is the only masking way that we're going to show this class where you don't actually have to inverse anything. So with everything else, we had to do inverse, we had to do Shift Command I. With the magnetic lasso, it chooses what we want. We don't have to inverse. So it's kind of a cool thing because it's a little, it has that, you don't have to do that extra step. So kind of just keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to click our Create Mask, and we're going to go in and refine this, because what I find is that, like I said, I'm a fan in some ways of the magnetic lasso, but I'm not in other ways because I find it gives it kind of a jaggedy finish. But if you have something that's on a white background, like our first hat that we would have done, that we did, That would be kind of ideal magnetic lasso because the background is so different than the thing you want to capture. So it all kind of depends on who you are, what you're masking, and just like what tools feel like they work well for you. So again, I'm refining the edges of this mask. And if you have black as your foreground color, it's going to actually paint on more mask. If you have white, it's going to take off mask. Okay, so we're going to, oops, always Command Z, always Command Z. All right, so we're going to take off more pieces and just keep it moving. Okay, so we're going to again combine this with our oops, tortoise. Zoom it out so we can see it a little bit more. So grab our rectangle marquee, select our hat, bring it over, and nice. Oh, much better. Okay. And then you can see it kind of doesn't really fit. So we know to make it smaller and hold down Shift. And ooh, that's actually a really nice fit. That's a really nice fit over here. So another thing you could do if you notice that your fit isn't quite as it could be, or if you want to just adjust it further, you can still keep on painting the mask even if you're on this. Oops, even if you're on here. So you can see here if I were to, oops, if I were to engage my mask. So click on the mask itself, and then do your brush tool. And then I just remove the mask, which I didn't want to do. Move it through. So, you can still continue to, yeah, that didn't look as good. You can still continue to kind of update what you're doing. Just make sure your mask is selected. And if ever, you do something and it doesn't do what you thought it was going to do, just flip your colors. You can click on this little arrow to flip them back and forth, and things should work. Okay. All right, so we're going to save him again. And I don't think we're going to grab something for his little flipper, but I think we're going to grab a background, mostly because we're running a little bit out of time. Okay, so I'm going to do a tropical background. Actually, I could have probably even done like a disco background because he kind of looks like he's dancing. Disco background. Oh. Oh, this could get so fun. All right, let's see what we're going to do. I think we're going to do this one. Okay, and again, download full. Okay, so we're going to bring this into Photoshop. So file, open, and download, open. So for this background, we actually aren't going to mask it in any way. We're just going to use it all and kind of arrange it and see what we want. So again, just have them right next to each other. And then with your move tool selected, just click on your abstract background, drag and drop it into your picture. And then you probably will have to rearrange where it is in your layers. So you want to just grab the layer and pull it down so it goes to the behind part. And then think about how you want to kind of arrange it. So maybe we want him kind of like that. I feel like he's doing like a little John Travolta Staying Alive type deal. Okay, so I didn't do much to the background, but I think we're gonna keep on tweaking it in a couple different ways. So one thing you also might want to try is just doing a couple adjustment layers targeted to your image itself. So we looked at adjustment layers for photos, And you actually can put them also directly onto things that have been masked. And let me just get rid of this layer because I have an extra one. And let's talk about how you do that. So basically I have my hat layer selected, and I'm going to click on my fill or adjustment, and let's go to hue saturation because that's kind of a fun one. So I'm going to move this properties over here. So with my hue saturation over, look what's going to happen. So I can skew the hue, and it's going to make the colors really change and shift in the image and like what's happening. So it's making the whole image change right now. What I'm really curious about though is not the whole image, it's just the hat. So before, let's see, what does his, oops. The hat itself is kind of this like brownish nothing color. So let's say I want the hat to be, what do I want the hat to be? I think I want the hat to be purple and super saturated. So you can use saturation as well. So I just want his hat to be this kind of neon-y color. So what I'm going to do is just apply the adjustment layer only to the layer that the hat is on. So right now the adjustment layer is going to everything, and it's actually okay on everything too. Like I think it looks kind of cool, but we just want it on one. And so the way that we're going to do that is just hold down the Option key and then hit click, and then click. And if you're on a PC, I believe it's the Alt key. So let me just show you how that works. So I have hue saturation directly over the hat. You can notice I have a hand, kind of a hand pointing up. As soon as I click on Option, it turns into a square with a little bendy arrow. So what that means is, so I do that and then click once, and it's going to clip the hue saturation only to the layer directly below it. So if you want to unclip it, just do Option again, and it goes big. So how to change just in one targeted area, and it's pretty cool. So we're going to do the same thing with our turtle. So hue saturation. So I initially clicked on my turtle layer, and then I did a new adjustment layer, hue saturation, and same thing. I'm going to see how we can dial him up. I was kind of hoping we could get him more green, but let's. Oh yeah, there we go. Turn up his saturation. And so again, this is how you can get some pretty crazy colors. And I kind of like that it almost looks like he has like lips in here, which is pretty crazy. Okay, so we don't want it to apply to the lights. We're going to do our own thing with the lights. So again, hold down Option, click once, and there he is. Looking pretty crazy and amazing. Okay, so what I'm going to do for my final thing is I'm going to just play with the background a little bit. And so you guys need one more piece. So you would need some sort of prop for him to hold. Yeah, maybe we have time for that. We'll deal with the background first. So again, like the background's fine as is, but I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to actually have two backgrounds, and then I'm going to turn one to overlay, and you're not going to be able to see much until I start rotating it. And I'm just further creating kind of some abstraction. So maybe overlay isn't correct, maybe hard light. No, maybe linear burn. Let's see how that looks. Ooh, kind of mysterious. So again, this is linear light. Ooh, that kind of cool. That looks cool. So again, this is just to show you with this assignment, like you can be as crazy and wild and dare I say gaudy and outside of the box as you want to. In fact, perhaps more is actually more for this assignment. So, you know, just have fun with it and try all of these different tools, because it's really cool stuff to see, you know, just how you can change and shift and grow your image with, and so I'm hitting Option again, with just these, you know, small tweaks and changes and updates, like what what you can do when you put images together. So kind of amazing. Okay, so let's maybe grab a prop since it's only 2:40 my time. I don't know about this background. I feel like that's one level too crazy, but we shall see. Okay, so what could he be holding? So he's dancing. Man, I have no idea. I kind of wanted to be holding like a streamer or something, but I don't think that would work with my image. Maybe he could be holding a maybe he can be holding a flower. Okay, so once again, we're going to grab our flower. And which one are we going to do? Oh, he might be holding a rose. This might be good. So again, as I said before, sometimes choosing images that have very plain backgrounds is nice and easy. Okay, so he's going to have a rose. All right, so we're going to go to File, Open, and there's our rose, open. Okay, and with this one, we can use whatever mask. Well, we can use whatever masking we want to. Mostly because I showed you the three majors. I think actually we will do magnetic lasso on this one as well because it's a pretty easy. It's a pretty easy fit with the colors and the lack of color or lack of background. So again, you just kind of run your tool on the edges, and Photoshop basically does the rest, which is quite nice. And we're not going to be super exacting because I think we're only going to use a very small part of this. Okay, and then click. And then put our mask in and drag magnetic lasso, or rectangle marquee rather, and drag it into our picture. And you'll see it's it dragged into underneath the hue saturation layer, so we got to just bring it to the top. So there it is. And move it around. And oh my goodness, this image is getting crazier and crazier. Okay, so you can see we have our flower positioned, and like, you feel like he's gonna throw it next. Okay, so one thing you might also want to consider doing, so it would be a little difficult, I think, for a turtle to actually hold something because I don't think they have, the flexibility. But if you want to kind of make it look like his flipper is like over part of this flower, so, or this is for anything. If you want to kind of make it look like something is kind of holding onto or peeking through or whatever, all you really have to do is just put some more mask on it. So I'm just going to essentially cover over this part of the flower so you can kind of see the flipper coming through. So, excuse me, just click on your mask and then B for your brush, and then we're going to, get black in front and just paint more mask so that we can kind of make it look like he's holding it. And I got to get a little closer because, so now I'm flipping it back so I get white on top. Making my brush a little bit smaller using my brackets, and just putting this around so that it feels a little bit more like he's kind of holding it in some different way, and maybe even a little bit more. So, a little tricky because that leaf actually kind of blends into his flipper. But okay. All right, so let's zoom back out. See how that looks. Oh, amazing. I just want to change the color of the hat, which brings me to a good point. So if you want to, so I did all this stuff, and now I'm suddenly thinking that hat is kind of not the color I want it to be. So if you want to change your adjustment layer as far as what's going on, it's very easy to do. All you have to do is just click on, well, find the layer first, and then click on this little box that's next to it. So here's the layer. So just double click on the box and it'll bring up the properties, and then you can change. Ooh, it could match the rose. That'd be cool. Let's see what my options are. Yeah, no, I like the rose matching. And then you can change it to whatever kind of you want. And then just click the X to get it there. And do I want an adjustment layer to the rose itself? Let's see. Try hue saturation. I feel like I shouldn't, but okay. Amp up the color of the rose. Hold down Option, click. Only applies to the rose. Yeah, I think I like it. A little bit strange, but that's okay. All right, so we have all of our bits and pieces happening here, creating a very wild and energetic and somewhat stimulating experience of our dancing tortoise with a hat and a rose and some wild lights. So this is kind of where we're going for this assignment. So a couple of things to keep in mind. Really have fun with this. So the heart of this assignment is you guys just practicing your masking skills. So, don't find a picture that feels fairly complete already. Just find some random elements and try, kind of clipping them together and, seeing what you could build, like what sort of crazy story you could come up with, because you never know quite what's possible. The other thing too is it's very tempting when you're masking to feel like you have to get it perfect. In certain contexts, you do have to get it perfect. Like if you're doing client work, that's very important. This is the first time most of you are going to be doing this, so I don't expect or need perfection, because you could literally spend like days on this trying to get it right, and it would it could get you frustrated in many ways. So just go for good. Go for a good pass. If there's something that's really like out there not working, that's not good. But think about what you could do, and don't get yourself too kind of wrapped up if you can't quite get it, because it's a very much of like a muscle skill that you have to kind of figure out how it works. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, so before we finish this session completely, I'm just going to come to File and Save As. So with this one, again, I would love it if you could turn in both your JPEG and your PSD, just so I could kind of see how your layers are constructed, and then also just see the complete package. So we're going to save it format, JPEG, save. And it's also quite important that you are saving it as a PSD, just in case you want to go back and change anything or shift anything around, or that sort of thing. So kind of keep that in mind. All right. Well, when you're all done, you can feel free to turn it in and enjoy sharing it around. And yeah, I think that kind of will wrap us up. I apologize if you hear barking. Our mail just came, so it's good everybody's we're wrapping it up at a good time as well, perhaps. But yeah, so multi-session happening on Thursday at 1 p.m. So if you have any questions or you want some more kind of feedback or a walkthrough or anything like that, I'd be happy to do it then. Otherwise, looking forward to seeing what you come up with. And remember, make time for the assessment. Shouldn't be too difficult if you watch the beginning part of this session. And just have fun with this assignment. All right. If you guys have any questions, if you're here, feel free to let me know. If not, you guys can feel free to head out. And yeah, thanks for another great session.